wasn't supposed to have anyone in it. I'd only been living alone for a few weeks in this small one-bedroom apartment tucked underneath someone else's house. It was late. I just finished a scary movie. One of those ones that makes you feel stupid for checking the dark corners. But you still check anyway. And that night, the upstairs tenant wasn't even home. No car in the driveway. No footsteps, no TV, no normal sounds to blame. So when I kept hearing little noises, soft movement, light thumps, something shifting somewhere in the apartment, I tried to tell myself it was the building settling, pipes, wind, anything. But the longer it went on, the harder it was to pretend. I finally got out of bed, walked to my bedroom door, and opened it. Outside was this narrow hallway, bathroom on one side, living room at the end. Kitchen just beyond that. Moonlight was coming through the windows, just enough to see shapes. And at the far end of the hallway, there was a woman. Just standing there, facing me like she'd been waiting for me to look. For half a second, my brain couldn't even process it, because real life doesn't do that. Real life doesn't put a silent stranger in your hallway, like a scene from the exact movie you just watched. Then she started moving, but not toward me. She walked backward, still staring right at me the entire time. And that's when I screamed.
The scream came out of me before I even realized I was backing up. My feet hit the carpet. I stumbled into my bedroom, slammed the door shut, and locked it so hard my hands were shaking. My heart was pounding so loud I swear I could hear it in my ears. I waited for her to rush the door, for pounding, for screaming back. None of that happened. Instead, I heard fast footsteps running, moving away from my bedroom, and the sound of someone charging up the short flight of stairs that led out of my apartment. And finally, the front door slammed shut so hard it rattled the walls. That sound stayed with me. I didn't move for a long time. I just stood there in the dark, frozen, replaying what I had seen. After what felt like forever, probably 10 minutes, I grabbed my phone like it was a lifeline and slowly opened my bedroom door again. I checked every corner, the bathroom, the living room, the kitchen. The apartment was empty. No hiding places, no open windows, no explanation. I locked the front door and just stood there wondering how someone even got inside without me hearing it. I didn't call the police, I don't know why. I just didn't. But the next day, I told the landlord. And what he told me back made my stomach drop.
The landlord didn't answer right away. I could hear him typing, then making a call while I stayed silent on the other end of the line. One line running in circles. When he finally came back, his voice sounded tense, not confused, not doubtful tense. He told me the woman I'd seen wasn't some random intruder. She was the upstairs tenant's ex. Apparently she'd been obsessed, the kind of person who doesn't let go, who shows up unannounced, who crosses lines like they don't exist. She'd somehow tracked down his address and broken into what she thought was his place. Only she'd gone into the wrong part of the house. My apartment. Hearing that didn't make me feel better. It made everything worse. Because it meant the look on her face in the hallway wasn't confusion. It wasn't surprise. She knew she wasn't supposed to be there. The upstairs tenant came down later that day and apologized, awkward and uncomfortable, like he didn't want to say more than he had to. Neither did the landlord.
that was that. But even now, years later, I still think about it. About how quiet she was. About how she backed away instead of running. And about what she might have done if she'd ended up in the right apartment that night. And that wasn't the last time someone dangerous ended up closer to me than they ever should have.
Not long after that, danger stopped feeling random and started feeling familiar. I never liked my dad's girlfriend from the moment he introduced her. Something about her smile bothered me. It was too wide, too deliberate, like it stayed in place a second longer than it should. Her name was Kathy. And after my mom passed in 2019, my dad was lonely enough to ignore every warning sign I tried to point out. At first, it was just a feeling. Then the little things started stacking up. One afternoon when my dad wasn't home, I caught Kathy standing in his closet. That's where he keeps his safe, the combination important stuff. She turned, smiled that same unsettling smile, and said, "Hey, what's up, sweetie?" Like she hadn't just been caught somewhere she had no business being. I told my dad, he brushed it off. A few days later, I came home from school and saw her leaving my 10-year-old brother Jake's room. When I asked why she was in there, she smiled again and said she was just opening the window because it was hot. But when I checked later, both windows were closed. I told my dad again. He asked me to be patient, said he knew I didn't like her. What I didn't tell him, what I couldn't explain, was that the feeling I had wasn't dislike. It was fear. And it was about to get a lot worse.
Two days later, the house was supposed to be empty. At least for everyone except Kathy. And my youngest brother, Scotty, my dad, Jake. And I were all out. But I came home early and didn't tell anyone. Part of me wanted to relax. Another part of me wanted to know if my instincts were right. So I stayed quiet. Too quiet. I slipped into my room and waited. That's when I heard Scotty crying downstairs, not normal crying. This was full-on distress, panic, and over it, Kathy's voice screaming at the top of her lungs, telling him to shut up. It stopped me cold. I ran downstairs and yelled at her to leave him alone. She jumped when she saw me, and for the first time, that creepy smile was gone. Her face went blank, no emotion, no apology. She just turned, went downstairs, and shut the door. I called my dad immediately. He came home later that night and said he talked to her. I don't know what was said, but something changed. Because that night I woke up and knew someone was in my room. I saw a shape move away from my bed. The door closed quietly. I stepped to the hallway just in time to hear my dad's bedroom door shut. When I opened it, Kathy and my dad were both in bed. She denied everything, said she hadn't left the room. My dad told me to go back to bed. I listened, but I didn't sleep. I still don't know why she was in my room, and I don't know what she was doing there. But I know one thing for sure. She wasn't there by accident.
Years later, when I was 30, I thought distance and time had put all that behind me. I was down in my condo in Fort Lauderdale. Second floor, nice building, quiet area, January. Late night, I was sitting out on the balcony with my laptop, feet up on the railing, enjoying the warm air like I always did when I escaped the cold up north. That's when I heard someone yell from the parking lot below. At first I ignored it. People shout all the time. Then it happened again. "Hey, you up there." My heart skipped because now I knew they were talking to me. I looked down and saw a guy standing by a car, staring up at my balcony backwards hat tank top. He told me to come down so he could show me something cool. I brushed him off and sat back down. That's when he laughed and said, clear as day, that he was gonna come up and skin me alive. I went inside and locked the sliding door, telling myself it was just another Florida lunatic, but minutes later my front door exploded with pounding, screaming threats. The sound changed, turned sharp, carving, stabbing. When the police came, there were knife marks in my door. And as terrifying as that was, it still wasn't the closest I'd ever come to being hurt by someone who already knew too much about me.
That realization hit me hard, because I'd already learned what happens when the wrong person gets personal details about your life. That lesson came the night I spent in jail. I didn't do anything violent on purpose. I was drunk. A bouncer put his hands on me over a lie, and things escalated fast. Cops were already outside, and the story wrote itself. I was the drunk guy, he was the employee. Guess who got cuffed? They put me in a holding cell with one other guy. One look at him, and I knew I was way out of my depth. Face tattoos, missing tooth, that kind of stare that makes you keep your mouth shut. I tried to be polite, kept things light, and because I was angry and drunk and needed to vent, I told him too much. Where I lived, the nicer side of town, that my parents were away, that I'd had people over before the club. I didn't think anything of it until the next night. Back home, windows open, quiet neighborhood. That's when I heard footsteps circling the house, more than one set. I started closing windows one by one, until I reached the sliding glass door to the deck. I flipped on the light and saw two men bolt into the dark. One of them was my cellmate. He'd listened, he'd remembered, and he'd come back. And suddenly, that jail cell didn't feel like the scariest place I'd ever been.
I never told my parents about any of it. Not the arrest. Not the men outside the house. I locked everything down and waited for morning, hoping that was the end of it. But that feeling, the sense that someone had crossed a line into my life, never really went away. And then something happened that made me question whether danger always comes from people we can see. I'm not a spiritual person. Never have been. So when my grandparents told me they didn't like my boyfriend, Spencer, I brushed it off. My grandma especially said there was something bad about him, something wrong. She wasn't saying it to be dramatic. She sounded genuinely concerned. At first, I didn't listen. Spencer and I argued a lot. He had a temper. One night, I honestly thought he might hit me. That's when I ended things. My grandma was relieved. She said I deserved better. Not long after that, she passed away. A month later, during one of the worst stretches of my life, Spencer reached out again. He was calmer, kinder, different. We saw each other every night for 2 weeks. No fights. I felt safe again. The night we agreed to be official, I woke up to a loud crash. The picture frame of my grandma, hung securely on the wall, had fallen and shattered on the floor. No draft, no explanation. The next day, Spencer blew up at me over the phone. And suddenly, my grandma's warning didn't feel like an opinion anymore. It felt like a message.
I tried to convince myself it was coincidence, gravity, a bad nail, anything that didn't involve signs or warnings from beyond the grave. But that uneasy feeling stuck with me, the same way it always does when something doesn't sit right in your gut. Not long after that, I took a solo road trip to Colorado. Just me, my Jeep, and miles of wilderness. I'd always liked being alone out there. Off-roading trails, no cell service, no people. Just quiet. I spent the day tearing through red feather lakes and decided to finish the night on Dead Man's Road. The name didn't bother me at the time. I pulled off the trail and set up the back of my Jeep to sleep. LED light bar on, area lit up, snacks eaten, windows closed, sleeping bag laid out. Then the woods spoke. At first it was a voice, distant, followed by laughter. Short, sharp, wrong. I looked for headlights, taillights, anything. Nothing. The voice came again, closer. Still laughing. I couldn't tell if it was a man, a woman, or a kid. And then, clear as day, I heard, "Hello, I see you there." I couldn't move. I didn't even breathe. Then something slammed into my rear windshield. I dove into the driver's seat and floored it, flying down the trail, convinced something was chasing me. I didn't stop until I hit pavement and drove straight to the nearest motel. People ask if it was someone who needed help. No, no one laughs in the dark like that.
I've dealt with sleep problems most of my life. Night terrors, insomnia, sleep paralysis. If you've ever had it, you know how messed up it is. Your mind wakes up, but your body doesn't. You can't move. You can't scream, and whatever you see feels real in a way that's hard to explain. I've hallucinated spiders crawling across my bed before, giant bugs that vanish the second I snap fully awake. I've jumped out of bed screaming, throwing pillows at nothing. But one night stands out above all the rest. It was during a brutal week of school, barely sleeping. Overloaded with assignments, I finally crashed around 3 in the morning and immediately fell into a nightmare. I was running through this long building, room after room, finding candy everywhere like some twisted Halloween setup. And all the while, there was laughter, a child's laughter coming from everywhere. When I reached the final door, I opened it and woke up. Except I couldn't move. Sleep paralysis. Then I heard the laughter again. This time, it was in my room. I shifted my eyes toward the center of the room and saw 4 figures standing there. A man, a woman, a little boy, a little girl holding hands, smiling at me with impossibly wide grins. They felt like they were getting closer, bigger, floating toward me. When I finally broke free, I screamed and threw my pillows at them. And then they were gone. I saw my doctor the next day, got new medication. I still have night terrors, but nothing like that. What scares me isn't just what I've seen. It's how often danger shows up quietly, and how real it always feels when it does.
If stories like these make you double-check your locks, or think twice before turning off the lights, If you want more true stories that feel a little too real, stick around, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.